One man saying that is fine. If that's your opinion and you're not in it, that's fine. But there is an entire market of millions and millions of people that agree that it is a store of value. So, you can think one thing, but there's also a market, and markets tend to become efficient over time.
We do know that you will always get paid in HEX on a daily basis. And that is truly the miracle that we call HEX, because it is trustless interest, trustless yield. Nothing will stop that contract from running.
Silent night, all is calm. Welcome in, everybody, to the Creed of Crypto live stream. My name is Broke Boy Crypto. I have here with me, as always, my friend and co-host, Crypto Ewok. Merry Christmas, everybody. December the 18th, we're 1 week away from the fat man coming down the chimney and doing whatever weird stuff he does in our home. So looking forward to that. We got a lot to talk about tonight, and we're going to talk about, there is growing sentiment from a lot of people out there, and I think it's because so many people got trapped and round-tripped the last cycle in 2021 of wanting to sell early in 2025, and people already preparing, crypto people that are already here and have been around the block and are ready to go. Obviously, retail is going to come when they're going to come, and they're going to buy the top whenever it is. But for the people that are here and have been here for years, I think people are really excited to just get out of this market early, and hopefully that'll present an opportunity for us. We got a poll question up about that. We had the FOMC today, cutting basis points by 25%, so we'll get into that a little wee bit. What else have we got? A whole bunch of other stuff. PulseChain prices kind of dipped down pretty heavily yesterday and are now flatlining as the rest of the market drops on the news of the rate cut. They also kind of tipped their hand a little bit, the Fed did, about what they're going to do in 2025, and people are overreacting to that, as they always do. So we will get into that. But welcome in, everybody. Scrubhead. I don't know any of these names. Gears, Get Pegged for sure. Viper Styles, welcome in. We're familiar with you, obviously. Billy Slime. I love these names. Yeah, beautiful. Hex, yes. I've never seen you around here. We got new people around these parts. I really like this. Don't know this guy. Welcome in to that long name. Shadowban for life. Awesome name. What a day. My goodness. Yes, Taylor. I don't know any of you people. So welcome in. Very happy to see you all. We're going to have a great show for you. Maybe it's the holiday season, something to a new channel for you. I'm not sure what it is. But Ewok, how are you feeling this fine evening?
I'm doing good, man. It's a Wednesday, getting ready for the holiday stuff. Markets looking like they're having a little pullback. Obviously, that's from the FOMC stuff that we're going to talk about a little bit. Otherwise, Richard just tweeted a little bit ago saying, on a day like today when everybody's panicking, it's good to see our markets kind of stabilized or stable right now, not stabilized, but we're not seeing the massive pullbacks yet anyway. So that's a good sign. More accumulation time, I think, at some of these low levels before we really start to get into the new year and make a nice little run for it. So doing well.
Yes, I'm hoping so too. I don't know why my internet is acting like I'm not doing well. So if I'm not, let me know. But there we go. I wanted to mention the poll question, which I just went away from and I just lost it. But it's basically, what percentage of your portfolio are you planning on selling, we'll say by May of 2025? So, but basically the end of the first quarter, the beginning of the second quarter of the year. 100%, are you selling all of it because you think the cycle is going to be already over by then? 75% banking on it being over pretty much by then. 50% to hedge your bets versus, the beginning or end of 2025, or none because you're waiting for the biggest alt season, hopefully, of your life in late 2025. Let us know what you think there. Am I coming through okay? I don't know why I'm getting some weird internet
Yeah,
error.
you sound good. Your camera freezes a little bit here and there, but you're doing all right. You're
Okay,
good.
I don't
You're
know.
crystal clear. Anyway, we can hear you.
All right. I don't know what that shit's about. So go ahead and answer that question. We'd like to get some sentiment from you guys. But taking a look at the market right now, BTC, moving down today. We talked about the FOMC thing. Usually things do get volatile around this news going into the FOMC. Obviously coming out of it it sounded like, and Ewok, I'll have you expand on this, but it sounded like Jerome Powell was somewhat, obviously he's always cautious sounding, like he's never going to come out and say like, hey, all systems go, we're all good. He's never going to talk like that. But he did sound hawkish as normal today. Maybe even a bit more as far as how many rate cuts they may or may not do in 2025. People have been betting on 3 or 4, with 4 being the more bullish number, of course, for people. So we'll get into that. Bitcoin drops the whole way to just under 101K right now. It was up at 107, nearly 108 at all-time highs just, yesterday, I think. So We've got that. ETH has moved down with it, of course. It's at 3650 right now. And again, the crypto market as a whole, I mean, you scroll up and down Coin Paprika here and everything's down 6, 7, 12%, so that's where we're at. So yeah, we can kind of probably do 2 birds, 1 stone here with this topic, Ewok. But what are you seeing right now with Bitcoin? The news is largely noise, especially in this environment with the FOMC stuff. But what do you make of the rate cuts today, what Powell may have alluded to, and just how the market's reacting here?
So from what, and I didn't see it live either, but I tried to read up on it a little bit after I was finished with work, and the main sentiment that I got was that Powell suggested there may not be as many rate cuts next year. Someone had mentioned that possibly 2 instead of 4, and I think the market's just responding. But again, not any more than what we talked about potentially happening last week. I said I think we could zip around in this zone for a while until things get settled down a little bit. You look at the Dow as well, and it's down considerably. You're 2.5% there and almost 3% on the S&P. And, again, it's just a reaction, and I think it's across the board. But, you and I talked about this before the stream, and from the initial rate cuts, we had suggested that usually within a few months anyway, there was almost always it could be anywhere from 25 to 45% pullback.
Mm-hmm.
And, this could technically, because we haven't had one yet, this could technically be that as well. So it could be a combination of things. End of year, people selling off. There's some selling going on to, capture some gains by the end of the year. If people were at a loss, they could be tax harvesting, things like that. So, we're going to see some volatility here as we approach year end. But I think the sentiment that people were expecting a little bit more interest rates cuts for next year, and now we may not get as many of those, could be priced in here as well. So there's a lot of things going on that could all play a little part, but when you got that many little parts, it becomes one big one. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of what you're seeing. But as far as the Bitcoin chart goes, we're still in that range. We're still chopping around. You were right. Yesterday we did get up over 108,000, and we pulled back 7,000 since then. Basically, we're right at 100K. But again, I think now's the time where we see if this 100K level either it gets broken through or it uses it as support finally, instead of just having trouble getting up through it. So it's a critical time to see that as well. So I think everything's looking good. Ethereum, let's take a look at that dominance that we keep paying attention to. It has fallen way back down as well. Bitcoin went on a little run. We were almost at the 0.04 level here just a week ago, and now we're back down pushing that 0.03 level again. So we just can't get a nice stable run on that yet, but again, it's still pretty early. The majority of the full bull market hasn't even happened yet. And when it takes off, Bitcoin's a lot heavier than ETH is. So when that time does come, prepare for ETH to start making some big moves compared to what Bitcoin is, because Bitcoin's in uncharted territory. And as I said, it's very heavy. It's hard to move that price unless, but obviously, we know there are billions and billions of dollars coming in and out every day. So, yeah, I mean, it's looking good. I mean, again, pullbacks never hurt anybody. It's healthy. It's healthy to stabilize it as long as we don't break a major trend. We're looking fine.
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point about the 100K mark for BTC. I mean, that's been the coveted target for years now. Like, people talked about it. I mean, honestly, they even talked about it as like, could that be the next high for the next bull market even? Clearly, that's been surpassed already, and I think we'll probably go relatively far beyond that. But yeah, that's going to be the key number, and we're sitting at it right here now. This will be the test. Will it actually hold it? And I agree with you. I mean, the stuff that's happening with the FOMC today is largely just short-term noise that we don't need to think too much about. There was a good question by Billy Slime here a minute ago. Why do markets dip after cuts? I thought cuts were good. So as far as like this happening right now today, intraday, I mean, I don't know that the dip today is so much in response to the 25-point cut, because that was like literally 95% of people were expecting that. Yeah. So I think that part was baked in. I think it was more, and I don't have the words in front of me, but just the sentiment and kind of what Powell put out there. It's always his speech. Honestly, it's very rarely, and we learned this over the rate hikes over the last few years, it's very rarely what the maneuver is that they do. Because usually, I'd say 9 times out of 10, whatever the market is thinking, that's what they end up doing. You usually don't get caught off guard like, holy shit, they did a 50-point hike instead of a 25. Or it's usually not that bad. They usually nail that. It's how he sounds in his speech after it, and everybody, and they put out a document too in a PDF that like kind of tells you how they're looking. I think it was more in response to that, where they're not looking at making as many cuts next year as people maybe would have thought. We'll see. I mean, the Fed is their own mafia. They'll do whatever the hell they want to do. I was going to say we'll see what happens when, because Trump obviously will be in office by then, and I'm sure Powell hates him, and Trump isn't a huge fan either. So, but the Fed is really who runs the country. I mean, they run the monetary policy, and we're at their mercy a bit. So, yeah.
Well, and to that point of Billy's question, I think what he may be referring to is the comment that I made from when the interest rates are going up, they keep raising, and then the pivot. I should have worded it differently, but when the pivot happens, there is traditionally a major pullback sometime after that. That's 25 to 45% of all the markets, and we hadn't seen that, and it's usually delayed. Go back historically when rates have gone up and then they pivoted. Look what happens to the chart. Several days or several. I guess it's usually within a few months of that happening is when you get that major pullback as a correction. So that's what I was referring to, not necessarily just today's rate cuts.
I gotcha. You mean the overall pivoting? Yeah, I understand
right.
what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, so it'll remain to be seen, kind of the response to that. But traditionally here, I don't think this is going to last for long. We're going to see this dip for a little bit. We got 2 weeks until 2024 is over here. So I think we're going to see this dip here for another few days. And I think going into Christmas, we're going to start to see things move up really, really well. And then going into January, I think all bets are off. I think we're going to see things really, really start to get going, and especially Ethereum and the alts, because that's the only thing that hasn't gotten going yet, really. So I would be planning for that. There you go. Look at that. Right on time. PulseChain. So it's been a weird couple of days for PulseChain. Super volatile. Again, the whole market's been volatile, but PulseChain moved down pretty significantly yesterday. I mean, as significant as you can in crypto anyway, I guess. But really kind of flatlining today with everything else dropping. So that's nice. We already did our drop yesterday. So that's kind of what Richard was tweeting about just a bit ago. But we got Pulse at 4 zeros and a 7.3. Pulse X at 4 zeros, 4.7 roughly. Incentive token is just below $3, 2.97. Hex 2.4 cents, and eHex at just over a half a penny right now. So, yeah, what did you make of this? Yesterday was a weird day, actually. We should talk about this for a moment, but the price dropping within the ecosystem yesterday, some notable sentiment that was surprisingly like pretty negative to me, that felt like almost bear market times, maybe because we were the only thing that seemed like we were going down yesterday. But particularly Hexo, our friend Hexologist, had a rough day. I think that was more just about things going on with him right now that really suck. And, I think we're all with him on that. But more than it was the prices, because, he's one of the most positive guys around, honestly, as far as the impact he makes. But we can get to that too here. But whatever way you want to go first, Ewok, just why do you think we were kind of dropping first yesterday, kind of leading into today? And maybe we can get into the Hexo stuff too, because I think that's an interesting point.
Well, yeah, we need to talk about it at least. Honestly, I haven't seen a whole lot of negative sentiment. I think a lot of the negative Nellies that I usually follow on X, I've muted most of them because I was tired of hearing them be negative. So I'm just not seeing the sentiment. So, when it did pull back, I thought, well, maybe it's just a little correction of the past couple weeks of going up, that we needed to have that correction. I really don't think there's any other reason for it. Nothing negative happened. I didn't see anything bad as far as any products go, rug pulls, nothing like, there was nothing like that would have triggered something like this. So I think it's just a natural pullback type of thing. We have been since November, essentially, let's just take a look at it for Pulse. Since November, November 4th here to where we are today, we're still up 67%. The high was, almost a double. So, I think it's natural. I think it's natural to have some of these pullbacks. And again, I say it all the time, but they're healthy. We've got to have it. You can't just have the hockey stick. I know a lot of people want it, but for the reason that they want it isn't the same thing that I would rather see a much healthier chart. When you get a hockey pattern up, you're going to see it come back down just as hard, because people are just going to start cashing out. And I think that's why a lot of people get sentiment that's not happening fast enough. When you hear people talking like that, it's not happening fast enough, or when are we going to double again? They're eyeing it up to sell big portions. They just want out a lot of times. And, I understand a lot of us want to take some profits, but when that sentiment isn't being met with any kind of patience of letting things play out, letting things happen, it just makes me wonder if they're really going to be around for the long term, or if they're just here to make a couple bucks and get out and go. So, to each their own. I'm not telling anybody how to spend their money or what to do with it, but, in order to see long-term growth, there's going to have to be some people that do round trip it again, unfortunately. So that's just the way it goes.
And we need them, it's just kind of how the world goes around. And it's happened to all of us before. We're all products of it. That's just how that's markets. They rinse, recycle, repeat.
Yeah. But, we need everybody. You know what I mean? We need the people that are going to exit, go, and never come back. That means if it does go up later, they may buy back higher. They see something crazy going on, and they will get back in. And, you need the ones that are going to probably buy the tops and kind of get stuck. And then you need the smart ones that are going to take some profits, keep some aside for when it does dip the next time, and buy back in and do it the right way. So, there's all kinds. It takes all kinds, and you really, to have a successful community and product like that, you need a little bit of everybody. So again, I don't want to tell anybody what to do with their money, because you need all of them.
Just you pulling out there on the chart like that really shows how great we look. Honestly, like after yesterday, it's easy to get negative a little bit, but that looks fantastic right there.
Yeah. And this is Pulse X. I was just going through them.
Wow. I didn't realize you were on the Hall of Fame, the GOAT right there. I didn't realize.
Yeah. But even so, this is PulseChain. So, still, we've rounded the bottom. I mean, it's clear as day. This is the cup. This could be the handle forming here, and then it is time to go. But again, I think even from here, you're looking definitely up over. Once this next move potentially happens here, we should put us well over sacrifice rate. However, I think that sacrifice rate is going to give us a little bit of troubles. I think that is a very important level. We could break right through it, but I don't see that happening. I do see some sells coming back in once we get to that point of those type of people that I was just talking about. They want out. I think that's what a lot of people were waiting for that got in, because there were people that got in early at the sacrifice and have just been waiting their time to exit and take some profits or at least just break even.
Yeah. No, I'm with you 100%. That's definitely going to be a key level. At the same time, you look at the chart, it looks like if we do turn that into support, we're going up only for a while. So where we're at right now, and where we're at right now has been a key level. So, I mean, if you do, well, never telling anybody what to do, but if I wasn't as long as I already am and had even more dry powder, I mean, I would be doing it like right now. This dip right here is like, thank you. You know what I mean? DJ and Moonboy kind of said that in the chat a minute ago. It's like, yeah, let me gobble this up with my Christmas turkey, So what do we got here? We got a little ink.
It's looking pretty low in general here. But I mean, again, it's got that rounded bottom pattern here as well. It just didn't get up as high as I would have liked to see it before it made the little retraction here. But again, this is one of those tokens where people are getting it as a reward. A lot of people are getting it and selling it to offset their impermanent loss, which we'll talk about that in a little bit too. I think is one of our topics.
We'll see. Depends on how long-winded we are, but yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, you've got that. The good thing with incentive is there is no OA ownership. There are some big wallets out there that hold some, but the OA is not involved in this token. So, what we would ideally like to see is this going up, which increases the rewards for people placing liquidity. So as this goes up, you get more liquidity in the system, which increases the overall value, and it makes it easier for people to take some profits. So it doesn't fall near as much when you have more liquidity, but it also kind of slows down that hyperbolic hockey stick pattern a little bit too. It helps even it out. So this token has a good background for helping the whole market. So as this goes up, we would like to see that. We want to increase the ability for people to get the higher rewards and put a little bit more liquidity in here.
Yes, agree. It will remain to be seen where ink goes in this market and how much it is kind of a cake dump token, and how much, like you said, people LPing might put it back into the position that they've lost or whatever else they want to do. So I guess we gotta keep looking at all these goddamn charts.
I just wanted to look at Hex.
I'm just kidding. And honestly, I wanted to see eHex too, really, because it's been ripping the last couple weeks. But go right ahead.
I have that on a different chart, but
that's fine.
We'll take a look at this one. This one isn't bad at all. Actually, this is probably the best looking of all of them. As far as the movement, I mean, we were approaching, other than this one wick, as far as PHEX goes anyway, we're pushing up to, all-time high areas here around 3 cents. It did retrace a little bit, but as far as this chain goes, we've never been higher than, what is that, 4.2 cents? And that was this.
Did it really get that high? I
thought this one wick way back here in May. I mean, it's not even a closed candle.
We couldn't bridge yet, even probably.
Right. So it's this wick on this stick on May 20th, 23. So yeah, I mean, it didn't stay there. I think that candle closed at just under 3 cents, but it did go all the way up to 4.3 cents. So yeah, I mean, again, we're in that area, and things are looking really good for this. This is a very healthy looking chart. You get another little pullback, maybe down here to maybe not much further. I'm 2.2 maybe, but not much, and then it kind of goes for another little run here. Yeah, looking good. Let's take a look at EHEX.
Yeah, let's see that bad boy real quick.
See this bad boy on this chart. So yeah, you obviously had the FOMO or the post that kind of dumped everything back in March.
Right. And then the recent post, the recent one about it being in the top 4 or 5 of the MetaMask swaps.
Right, and I think that was back here. That shot it all the way back up.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite, but
something recent. It was very
started
recent.
this. Well, actually, I think it was this one, and then BankX obviously took over and dumped a good portion. Speaking of BankX, I believe they're only holding 221 million, which
correct. Yep.
Out of the 840 or 870, I forget what they originally had.
Right around
they're down a fourth of that they've dumped at very, very low levels. They're becoming essentially like one of the OG holders as far as size goes. So it's not as intimidating as it used to be. If we really want to, I think we could, but they've removed their sell walls. So they don't have any liquidity in there anymore at all. They're just holding it liquid. I would much rather just see them get out rather than hold on to it. But who knows what they're going to do with it, but that's a good sign.
I'm glad you did bring that up now. It's just good to work it in at this moment because at an even more positive point on Saturday, I think it was, is when they sold over 100 million EHEX in one go this past Saturday.
Yeah.
And we were moving up. Like you didn't even notice it. Not only did you not notice it, but the price went up. So that goes to show everybody with this big dark cloud over them about like, EHEX can't go up because of BankX. I mean, they have 1/4 of their stack left, and now when they do big sells, it's not even noticeable anymore.
Right. Right. And you look at the transactions on this wallet, they haven't really done much as far as they've been moving some ETH around, but they haven't sold. Let's see when the last time they sold HEX was. I'm seeing a whole bunch of looks like the 14th. So 4 days ago was their last HEX transaction, and they were doing a million at a time. Million. Each one of these is a million HEX.
Yep.
One after another, like literally 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 4 minutes. So I mean, yeah, they just unloaded all day.
Yep. Very interesting.
They bought some Pika.
Now now these guys are smart. Now I'm starting to see the plan here.
Interesting.
They're buying my Pika bags.
Or they received them. I'm sorry. It looks like a receive. I don't know if they sent them from another wallet or somebody might have sent them to. But yeah, million after a million after a million all day long. And it was literally every 2 or 4 minutes, whatever it was. But anyway, so we're slowly getting them out of the picture, which is good. This chart though, again, when that was on the 14th, and look, we still had green candles. It's amazing to see that, it just didn't affect it. And then the next day it continued to go. So yeah, I think we can easily get that bag out and just dismiss all the FUD that's really not necessary anyway, but it's there as a psychological type thing where people don't want to enter yet because they're afraid they're just going to cash out on them and use them as exit liquidity. But I think what people don't understand is that this has been waiting a long time for them to get out so that it can pump. So,
Yes.
don't be afraid. Don't consider yourself exit liquidity. I do think this one's going to run. And who knows where it ends up? Do I see parity? Nah, I don't know about that. But it could get back and compete anyway.
Yeah,
So,
either way, the liquidity is so low that, yeah, I mean, even if you don't talk about parity, which, there are arguments to be made for parity with what may or may not be going on with PDI, not for just Hex and EHEX, but PulseX and Pulse, which is obviously far closer.
sure.
But yeah, there's a lot to be seen there. I did want to ask you real quick. We don't have to touch on it too much because I know there was some personal stuff and I didn't want to get into that necessarily, even though he talked about it. But yeah, Hexologist yesterday just with some tweets, uncharacteristically like, man, it sure is tempting to go shill some other, like crap crypto or something like this some days or whatever. And, you could tell he was just down on the dumps. He had a stream a little bit later. And turns out, long story short, that the guy, I think of all the things going on with him, the thing he was stressing about the most that day is that he is getting subpoenaed by the SEC. This is from his mouth. I'm not making it up.
Mm-hmm.
He's still getting subpoenaed by the SEC, him and his wife, who, as far as I've ever known, is not a visible figure within, the Hex or PulseChain community, really.
Not anymore.
Yeah. So it's just fucked up that this stuff is still going on. He can't know this for sure, but something that he said, just speculating, it's not basically the subpoena that they're getting. It sounds they're asking all the same questions that they already were.
Yeah.
And it would be normal SEC style. He was speculating that they've gotten it floated to them that this isn't looking good for them. Not necessarily that the case is going to be dismissed, but that part of it may be, and then they don't stand a snowball's chance in hell to really win anything if it goes forward, which is really how we've been calling it the entire time. But he thinks they're just circling the wagon again, trying to get more out of them and stuff. But in the meantime, you think about being in Hexo or any guy's position who has ever gotten subpoenaed about anything that they didn't really have much to do with other than investing in. It's like your family is being bothered. He is consulting an attorney that he's paying for, I'm sure, to deal with this shit. And then like your wife also gets it. I think he has 2 little kids?
3.
3. So it sucks. And I know he has other stuff going on that he was talking about, but I mean, like that part really does suck. I've gotten court papers I didn't want to get in the mail before. It is not a pleasant feeling at all.
No.
It's jarring. It ruins your freaking day. But
not only that, it ruins your week. But he said the last time he got some papers was before Thanksgiving. Now, like a week before Thanksgiving, the last time. Now this time it's a week before Christmas. So, I don't know if did you watch his show when he was talking about it?
About the first half, yeah, until he got through that,
yeah. One of the things he brought up too was they sent it in his dad's name, which was kind of messed up to his address. I'm surprised he divulged that, and maybe we shouldn't either. But anyway, his lawyers are working on it. But it makes me wonder because there were a bunch of others. I think Johnny Chaos had gotten whatever, Maddie. There were several others. I know RG did, and I know there were a bunch at the last cycle. So I'm just wondering if all of them got them again this round. There were some lawyers that had said something that they're just on a fishing expedition is really all it is. It's been obvious all this time that no one's been paid. I think it confuses them to see how people can be passionate enough about something to just talk about what they like and not be paid for it, because there are so many other crypto influencers out there that get paid to talk about stuff all the time. And I think they just think it's standard suit for everybody to be that way. And especially since, there is a case happening, they're trying to find something that just isn't there. So, they can keep looking. Unfortunately, it is costing people money and lawyer fees and things like that. And the stress, like you said, it's right before Christmas. So it doesn't want to have to worry about that shit. But I don't know, since when did we lose the freedom of speech? Unfortunately, we can't get on here and just talk about things. I'm sure there'll be a day, maybe, that they either put this stuff to bed or they start coming after other streamers too. And it is what it is. It's kind of what we signed up for when we got into this, knowing that there's a possibility. We don't have the follower count that Hexo has, but there is that risk. So
yeah, and I think it's a little bit. Maybe we're being a little bit naive, thinking that it's only what you just said coming from the SEC. Like, well, these guys are out here talking about it; they got to be getting paid. I mean, maybe that's some of the sentiment, but it's also, like we've always talked about, purely and utterly just a shakedown of RH to try to get money, because they're not out there actually creating things in the world. Hexo brought this up too. I think they have to do something to justify their job.
Right.
Like you got to do something. So they just keep throwing these lawsuits at people. I mean, thank Christ that we know that Gensler's out of here in a month. Paul Atkins is going to be in there. I mean, I don't really want there to be, an SEC regardless. I mean, I guess you can't have people running rampant. There's going to be some kind of regulation on some stuff, which is all the crypto's ever really asked for. It's like, well, if you're going to regulate it, can you regulate it, not abuse your power and just try to hurt people,
Yep.
So thankfully, Gensler's gone. Paul Atkins will be in a month. Trump's taken over. That's all good. But it still remains to be seen how much better it'll be. And we're still dealing with this case in this ecosystem. I mean, not that I honestly don't think it has much of an effect on what the price is. We've had this discussion like ad nauseum. I do think we're going to get a very positive, a positive result from the case. It just sucks that Hexo is going through this and his whole, family is affected by it. It's just really shitty,
Yeah, and maybe Johnny, since he's in the chat, if he wants to divulge if he knows of others that got subpoenaed as well or not.
Didn't Trevon last time around? Didn't Trevon get subpoenaed?
Trevon got subpoenaed some time ago. He might have been on the first round, as he was one of the early. He was, obviously in Hex very early.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, one of the ones where he ignored it. He didn't realize it was a mandatory thing, and they kind of knocked on his door and said, "Hey, let's go."
Yeah.
So I think that was completely different, but along the same lines anyway.
Yeah. Well, thinking about Hexo, hope things turn out good for him. I think he'll be fine. It's just a rough, shitty period to get through, but there will be brighter days ahead. And I saw him out there on Twitter already, ratioing Uniswap and doing the things that he does again today. Johnny says, yes, but not me. They know I will counter sue the fuck out of them. So there you go. He believes other people have gotten subpoenaed, but not him. Yeah. So
it sucks. It sucks that they've got nothing better to do, but
yeah.
Either way.
Well, Gensler won't have anything to do here soon, so that'll be good.
Hopefully,
yeah.
He'll get a job with his bank buddies over at Chase or something like that.
Yes, very quickly. It's probably already lined up. I'll tell you what. Last little thing on this point, and then we'll transition into kind of the main topic about like this cycle and when it could end. I did think this was interesting enough to look at from Shadow Banned for Life. You guys think Richard's going to drop a Christmas message vid again this year? Will be very telling if P-Dye gets mentioned by him. I definitely don't think that's going to happen. Just, like very obviously anyway, would help give the community some clarity. And then I'll defer to you. I don't think there's any way. I've said this before. Not only will he not ever reference P-Dye directly, I mean, he has shown tweets of it. Hey, look at this chart, but he hasn't gone into, the entire conspiratorial thing and gone down all these paths. I don't think he's ever going to. I don't think if they're ever, if all these things pan out, there is a peg, we see all these things come to pass. I don't think that he'll ever be like, yes, guys, here's how I did it. I don't think there's ever going to be anything like that. I know he likes to brag about himself. I don't think he's going to go that far with that stuff. But anyway, what do you think about a Christmas message and this stuff from RH this year?
I don't think we'll see anything. I really don't. It's the timing of it all. I mean, I know he has historically did live streams. I think the one year he did a 4 or 6 hour live stream. It was one of the years that he read one of my questions and gave me a shout out on Christmas Day. So that was pretty cool. But I don't think we'll see anything. If anything, if we get anything, it will be a pre-recorded video just wishing people Merry Christmas or whatever. You're not going to see a live stream. He's not going to mention probably tokens by name. He could talk about the markets in general, how things are kind of going, but it would have to be something that he could send to his lawyers they would either say yes, put it out, or no, don't, kind of thing. I really think he's just being extremely careful. And right now is not the time you want to get on a live stream and say something that could just, undermine what you've been doing for the past 3-4 months of fighting this case, so 6 months, however long it's been. So yeah, we're not going to see a video. If anything, like I said, it'll be a pre-recorded message. But I don't think we see anything from him.
I am with you. I mean, frankly, well, I was going to say I'm surprised that we did last year, but that was before the case was actually.
Yep.
Wait a minute. Am I getting my timelines messed up here?
Uh-uh.
No, the case was already filed at that point, right?
I don't think so.
Wait a minute.
I don't think it was filed until.
It was filed July 31st of some year. I don't even. Yeah, 2023. Was that last Christmas that he did it, or was that 2 Christmases ago?
2. It must have been 2.
I think it was 2, maybe. Because I don't think he was at. I don't remember. I don't remember. No, I think that was last year. I don't know. Whatever. I know that the lawsuit came down July 31st of 23, though. That's when that happened. So
yeah, but that's when they filed it. When did he give his response, though? I don't think.
I think it was in the new year. Yeah, you know what? The lawsuit had been filed, and he did the stream last year. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. And then Richard's attorneys responded.
Well, yeah, he hadn't responded. He hadn't responded to anything. No. Like, he was just playing like he didn't know anything about it. No one got a hold of him.
I think that is what happened.
But it was a pre-recorded message. So they had filed the suit in summer or whatever and never served him. They just never served him at all.
That's right. Yeah.
So not until early this year did anybody from his team acknowledge anything was going on.
Yeah. No, you're right. Okay. Well, there's a timeline for you. But anyway, yeah, I don't think we get anything from him this year, but hey, hopefully we'll see him again here soon. So I appreciate all you guys being here. We've got a decent amount of viewers, but last I refreshed, only 29 likes. So do us a favor, smash the like to support the channel, support Real DeFi, support PulseChain. We appreciate all you being here. Merry Christmas to all of you and yours. Let's take a look at this poll question, because we're going to talk about like the chances of this bull market ending early, Ewok's past cycles, and whether he was kind of nervous about, because we do usually get these pumps, one wave in the spring and then another one in the late fall, and keeping your head on a swivel when you get that early one in the spring. So the question is, what portion of your crypto bag are you selling by May of 2025? The choices are 100% early. So, well, I'll just go with what's leading. We've got the majority at 44% are saying that they'll sell 50% by that time because they're not sure if it'll be an early cycle top or a late one. So almost half of our viewers here are willing to sell half their bags by that time, which I find pretty interesting. Second at 30% is wanting to sell 25%, and the Q4 will likely be the cycle top. I think that's kind of more. I mean, it's a liquid plan as things move on, but I think that's more where I would come out on it. And then tied for last place are the two extremes: 100% getting out totally by May, or 0% totally waiting for the end of the next year. The thing is, that old saying, you have to have a plan or plan to fail or whatever the hell it is. But you do have to have a plan. And we've talked about that many times here over the last few weeks and months on this show about getting into 2025, because we've round trip stuff. You guys have round trip stuff. Maybe not like everything, but many people were in much better positions in like September of 2021 than they are right now, because they didn't take profits appropriately or couldn't, or whatever it may be. So you want to be able to hit this cycle out of the park. And if you've been here for 3 years, you have suffered badly. I mean, like, it has been real bad. You don't have to tell us that. We know how it's been. So you really want to be able to take advantage of 2025. So there are a lot of like mainstream crypto influencers out there, I think, because of how the last couple of cycles have gone and so many people getting just, rugging themselves basically by holding stuff into the bear market and everything, that are calling for like, I want to be out of this market by the end of Q1 next year. I'm going to beat the crowd, blah, blah, blah. There's so many people saying this stuff. This time is different. Get out by May and all these things. I wonder what your opinion is, Ewok, about the chances of that actually happening when, I mean, we have seen that there is another cycle top in quarter 4 of the post Bitcoin halving year every single time. And that has actually been the optimal time to sell on like a broad market, term anyway.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about the chances of that happening? And try to talk about, if you can, like some of your past experiences with like the run ups in the first half of the year. And were you ever thinking, like, shit, what if it's over right now? Or did you just say, no, 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 we're good? It's going to come later in the year.
Well, 2017 was my first bull market, and the top was with Christmas, basically the end of the year, December, late December. That was the first bull market that I experienced. I don't remember. I mean, I was kind of following Richard, but never, faithfully like I do now. And he did call the top. He called the top early, actually called the Christmas top. But again, I didn't know who this guy was. I really didn't know that he really knew his shit like that. The next time he called the top was in April, and he said, "That's it. That's the top." And technically, he was right until it did a double top in, what month was that? September, I think it was. It barely broke the 65K top and went to 67, and then immediately within a day pulled back. So that was the first time a double top really ever happened in all of these cycles. So now the question becomes, well, is that a new thing? Does that become a thing where we do get a April, May, each time it kind of backs off a little bit? Do we get an early first quarter top where it just goes parabolic and we get a blow off top? And does it then have that second effort, push where it can kind of get back to that level, and then that's it? That's where we're at. And it's very tough to say, what's going to happen, because again, last cycle was the first time for that. So, I mean, I could see people exiting 50%. I could see that, because a lot of the people that you were referring to are the ones that have been here a long time because they bought the top.
Right.
And that's what happens when you get a first cycle thing like Hex, where it did a 10,000x and people buy the top and round trip it. So hell, I'm still holding my BitConnect. So if that tells you anything about me, I'll hold a big portion of it. Not only that, I'm freaking staked. I'm staked out for 15 years. I have stakes.
It's your mistake.
Now, I will have liquid as well, to do with what I want, and I'm hoping to DCA out as well as I did in, and keep enough so that when it does dip, I'll have plenty of dry powder for the next cycle. So, I think we're in a really interesting spot, and I think this cycle is going to tell us a little bit. Is that a new trend, right? The double top, is that a new thing for cycle tops? Or was that just a fluke in 2021 when that happened? We don't know. This is really going to be a test of your testicular fortitude kind of thing. So
yes,
we'll see how it plays out. I think some people will take a little bit of profit fairly early, but they're going to keep a moon bag. It's silly not to. And I think it was Conspiracy Crypto said, "Sell in May and go away." I've heard that saying a lot, and more power to you, but it hurts to see it go on and continue up, and it runs away from you, and you could have gotten a lot more. So,
I think that's
really interesting.
I think that's one of those cutesy Wall Street sayings. Anyway, I'm not too worried about selling May and go away. But I was interested by this Shadow Band for Life, who's throwing a lot of good stuff in here. And I want to point out too, I'm not talking about just like PulseChain or Hex influencers. I'm talking about crypto wider market influencers are the ones that are mainly saying like, hey, and like the Morads of the world, who like all these people that have like gigantic followings that at first at one time may have been may have had more of an edge, but are now becoming just average because they have too many followers, Yeah, there you go. But with what Shadowban said here, so I think too many will have Moonboy expectations from overly optimistic influencers in the community. I wasn't even really talking about the PulseChain community, and there's no doubt about it. There are what I think have always been like totally irrational expectations from very many people in the community that have always been here. But that's not to say that I don't think we're going to pump like, very hard or anything like that. And here's the other thing. The reason I'm separating like the crypto influencers with a broad brush, like in other communities, the reason I'm separating it from us is we are unique in that this is not your typical like VC funded, go with the rest of the cycle being dumped on along the way. Like, yes, there's absolutely like liquidity bonding and stuff like that with Ethereum and where Bitcoin's going to go. And you're going to have that. But we are unique here because, well, number one, we may have something revolutionary happening with a stable coin on this chain right now. There's a treasury of 170,000 ETH that's probably going to buy the tokens up at some point. Elon Musk buying Tesla stock style. And a lot of other reserves beyond that as well, and just being contrarian to begin with and being undervalued as it is right now. So I don't think that that's the thing. And I think that's the thing that Richard's always liked is not going with the rest of the market. And, you're going to be tied to it to a degree, but I mean, like Hex pumped insanely hard when things weren't pumping insanely hard last cycle, and Hex topped out earlier than everything else last cycle. Yeah. So, I mean, there may be people in like the rest of the market that are doing certain things in early May and stuff, but I think PulseChain stands a very good chance of doing a lot more things at different times, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and we're always very, very delayed from the rest of the markets. We always talk about the Bitcoin top, and when the Bitcoin top happens, 28 days later, the Ethereum top happens, and then the move into altcoins. So you can't forget that process takes a couple months from the actual Bitcoin top to the rest of the altcoins starting to pop off, because people then move their assets in, and then your altcoins have their super cycle type, response. So there's a lot to happen, and it does take a couple months for it all to play out. So I think, honestly, my opinion is May Q1 is a little early. So unless you're holding Bitcoin and Bitcoin only, I would be careful getting out too early, because there's nothing worse than watching it go up after you sell your whole bag.
Yes. And what have you, because I want to get a little bit more of your personal experience. I mean, the trouble is, as these cycles go on, not the trouble, but we're all getting more educated on how they look, getting more data from past cycles to color in our expectations for the following cycles. So maybe you didn't really have this foresight in 2017, 2021 as much, but were you getting worried those early parts of those years when there was massive pumps that like, what if this is it? And then you get a 60, 70, 80% dump and you're like, shit, what did I just do? Have you had that feeling before, or were you just like, hey, I mean, we're just waiting until I'm just wondering like how much, because everybody's so aware of the cycles now that I don't think they were as much, obviously, in the previous cycles. So
no, and in 2018, when everything was just falling and falling and falling, I wasn't aware of how it really all worked out, and that's when I really started to learn. Did a lot of reading and started to understand that that's how the cycle goes, and then you get the influencers with Hex and everybody saying how different it was, right? So there was that this thing could just run, it wouldn't have a cycle because of the mechanics of it and how the staking locked people up, and you really didn't have those big opportunities to sell. Now, I think eventually that's going to play out in some truth. But as with anything, Bitcoin's first cycle, it dumped 95, 96%, whatever it was. The second cycle, maybe only 85. Third cycle was only like 80, whatever. Each time the dump gets less and less of a percentage, because it gets spread out into multiple, into hands where it's not as heavily held by some big whales. So it's going to happen with every coin where the cycles get a little bit less. You're not going to have 99% drawbacks anymore because you don't have as many big whales, and they'll slowly get out of the system. Yeah, Hex is different. The people weren't, and that is true. So you had the same mentality of the other cycle, and it kind of happened that way, and I'll be honestly, really, the majority, I did take a little bit of profit the last cycle, but not near as much as I thought, because again, I thought it was going to keep going a little bit more. But I sacrificed, that was my profit taking. Everything that I sacrificed was profit. I still consider it profit taking in a sense, because I just basically, invested in something brand new. So, yeah, I mean, we all learn different ways. We all get in at different times of the cycle, and you get to visualize it and see it. And I think it may take more than one cycle to be like, no, it's still the same thing. It's not going to, everybody, you keep hearing these people saying it's going to be different. It's going to be different until it's the same again, just, same shit, different cycle. So I really don't know, how to say it any other way, but I think it's going to play out, as I say it, the same again until it isn't.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is too, you're probably going to have all these other signals that you can look at next year, like just an amalgam of different things to educate you on what the chances should be that this is the cycle top versus this being the cycle top at different times. I mean, we're going to have stuff going on with macroeconomics, obviously Trump being in office. There's all kinds of things going on with crypto in terms with him. Just the timeline of things, how other people are acting in the market. There's going to be so many things that you can use to inform your decision. And, we've had extensive conversations, you and me, before about like different ways of profit taking, and how I am definitely not a fan of like looking at a certain portfolio value and hoping for it, or looking at, I mean, you can use price charts to help, I think, as an element to educate you on when to sell, but it's also a sentiment thing too, and just where people are at. And
Yep.
I want to take all of that, factor in all of that stuff when I'm making those decisions.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of signals out there if you pay attention, and namely one of the biggest ones is people starting to show their portfolio. You start to see screenshots, and when you're screenshotting your portfolio every day because you can't believe how much it's going up, it's a signal that you should probably take a little off the top if you can. And this plays into this too. What I was saying about Bitcoin's dips each cycle becoming less and less volatile. Well, the ETF is definitely gonna help that, because of the injection of that money. Now, the bigger companies don't think that they don't know how to play the cycles, because they're also going to be taking profits and in hopes of a dip and buying back in and acquiring more of that product. So, don't think that they don't know or they can't control the markets a little bit as well.
Good comment from Conspiracy Crypto. My personal top signal is when my ex starts bragging about buying BTC ETF on her broker's advice. Yeah, she'll be paying a nice fat expense ratio for that fund or something like that too, I'm sure. So yeah, good signal there. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it, and you just got to think like, what price are you going to be? Are you willing to walk away with? Like, what if your portfolio only does like a 10x from here? Like, where will you be at? And like, that's why, like, right now, what I've been trying to do, candidly, honestly, is for the next calendar year. And I think everybody should be doing this, depending upon where you are in your life and what your goals are. Planning, like, not just for how you want to scale out of the market, but what are you going to do? I saw somebody a moment ago, I forget who it was, talking about like getting into stables and like LPing in the meantime and stuff. Like, yeah, like what are your plans? Like, what polls are you going to be into? We're probably going to have more on PulseChain that you can, put into get stablecoin yield and stuff like that. Are you going to do that? Are you going to take a large chunk out and go into like safer fiat investments or something like that might have a little bit more return for your stable coin fiat. How much are you going to leave in crypto for the next cycle? Like, what are you going to do? These are just things that I don't think can be impressed upon people enough, because it's so easy to round trip. Like you just talked about it, Ewok. Like last time around, you were like, oh, I thought it was just going to keep going and going and going. And even as you sit here right now, we may get to that point 8, 9, 10 months from now again, where it's like, nah, there's nowhere in sight that this thing is ending. You
It'll feel like that. It will feel like that,
right.
really, because especially when you sit through those 40 to 60 to 70% dips, and it just rockets again. It happened 13 times, I believe it was, that last cycle. So it starts messing with your mind and thinking, man, this is just going to keep going. Every time it pulls back and reloads, it goes even higher. So that's the hard part. That's the hard part. And again, that's why calling tops is so difficult, because when you're in that mindset and you're seeing what's happening, especially like on a weekly basis of a 65% drawdown, and then it does another double within 2 weeks, it's crazy. And it does mess with your mind.
Yeah. Yes. So you got to have a plan. Long story short, there's a lot of different ways we can go about it. But I mean, luckily, I think we'll have the time to all sit here and talk around the fire and figure out, where we're at in the cycle and everything. And yeah, Hex Girl, DCA out a small percentage as the prices increase. I mean, yeah, you can make a little plan for yourself that you can follow, like no matter what. I mean, it honestly is whatever helps you sleep the most at night. Like, what's going to, make you feel comfortable. So that's just kind of what you have to roll with. So it will be interesting. We got a big year ahead of us. I mean, that's for sure. That's the positive. And the nice thing is with crypto, I mean, you can kind of screw up a little bit here and there and still be rewarded very handsomely. I mean, you can also get slapped in the face harder than anything you ever had in your life. But the good news is if you stick it out and learn things in the market, you can do a lot better than you can really any other investment vehicle in the entire world. So it's kind of nice to have that. Ewok, do you want to go to the LP calculation thing? Because I would like to cover that. It might be the last thing we really get to tonight, though, because I think it's going to take a little while. But I think it would be good to cover for some people.
Shouldn't take that long, actually. It's pretty simple.
Well, I know, but I'm intrigued by it, and sometimes I get long-winded. But so we've been talking about, so Ewok and I have both been big proponents of providing liquidity mainly in the Pulse and PulseX pool on PulseX. And like you guys were just talking about doing stablecoin yield and stuff like that, liquidity providing for that. There's a few, not many really. I mean, 6, 7, 8 liquidity pools right now, or farms on PulseX. I mean, there's not too many. Right. There were a lot when we first launched. Those got pulled, which leads many people to think they'll be coming back. And we're going to have all kinds of different pools next year at some point, which would be very, very cool. But we wanted to provide this to you because I think there's definitely some points of clarity that need to be out there for different types of liquidity providing. Like, for example, we're talking about Pulse and PulseX. These are two things that you both are expecting to go up in value. This is not Pulse against a stable coin, or, it's something that you expect to go up against a stable coin. Those are the ones that can get people wrecked. Like, those are the ones where price of something goes up so much, you end up losing a bunch of it, getting into stables, and it's just horrible. And you have legitimate, really bad and permanent loss that maybe the rewards are not making up for. With something like Pulse and PulseX, maybe even like the PulseX and Inc. one, I mean, we don't do that, but, different strokes for different folks. But with two entities that you think are going to go up like that, your risk of impermanent loss usually isn't going to be as much, but there is a way, luckily, to calculate it. And I've heard people in the last couple of weeks, there's been many people that have been resistant to do even just something like the PulseX pool, which I think is pretty conservative. And I know you feel that way, Ewok. But people saying like, don't ever put your whole stack into that. It's going to get away from you. You're going to have all this crazy impermanent loss. That's horribly risky. What are you doing? And well, that may be true at some point, and you need to assess your own risk about, do you really want all of your Pulse and all of your PulseX in it versus maybe half or whatever. I don't think you're going to see like horrible, ridiculous impermanent loss with these two things. We know that PulseX has been running insanely hard against Pulse for a while. Yeah, it's an impermanent gain. But we know PulseX has been running really hard against Pulse. So if you've been in this pool for any significant period of time, you have lost PulseX and gained Pulse, which is something you need to remember. You didn't just lose PulseX, you also gained Pulse.
Right.
Now, at the same time, if you weren't earning incentive token, and if incentive at 10-15%, whatever it would be, and if incentive token wasn't $2-3 or whatever it's been, yeah, maybe you would actually be realizing some of that loss. But luckily, this calculator that Ewok has up on CoinGecko is a really nice, easy way to, even simpler than the thing looks, figure out what your impermanent loss is based on when you entered a certain pool. Okay. So that's the key, is get an idea. If you're in the PulseX pool or anything like that, make sure you know when you got in the pool what the ratio was. Like, I know what the ratio was when I entered mine. Ewok, I know you have a general idea. And then sometimes it isn't that simple, because you've also, DCA'd along the way, added to your positions in the pool. And if you've done that along the way while PulseX has risen up against Pulse, well, you've only just helped yourself, because you've DCA'd maybe the other coins equally and put them in at different ratios, so your permanent loss wouldn't be as bad.
Right.
Anyway, so this is it. So what you could simply do is like, it has the space there for asset 1 price change, asset 1 weight change, asset 2 price and weight. All you really have to do here is, you could even remove the asset 1 price right there and put everything at 0. And a simple way to do this for like the PulseX pool would be if you just simply went to Dex Screener, and if you, again, this goes back to the beginning, if you know where you started your pool, like let's say it was like I'll go the other way, like 1 to 3 or something like that. Like PulseX was 3-1 to PulseChain, or vice 1 to 3. You would have to mark the percentage from that price point up to where we are now, PulseX against Pulse. And then whatever that percentage is, you can just put it right there in that asset 2 field and hit calculate or whatever the button is. And it'll tell you right there what your impermanent loss would be. That's as simple as this is.
So let me give you a little different way as well. For example, if you know, let's share this tab first. If you know that 30 days ago you entered the PulseX pool, if you go back to 30 days and you see your percentages right here, so we could enter 15.3% on asset 1, and then we could look and say 18.1 on the second. I'll share this tab now. So you've got your 15.3 under asset 1, 18.1 under asset 2. Your impermanent loss is only 0.007196%.
Mm-hmm.
And that's if you did it 30 days ago. Now, again, that's using this, or 90 days. You could do it that way, or from the all-time low if you wanted to calculate and just see where it is if you had gotten in at the all-time low. This is another way to kind of estimate without going into each chart, because you can't enter. I don't think you can enter the price without a percentage. So you're either going to have to measure on the chart,
right,
from the day that you got in, or use something like this, the tool on GoPulse. So
yeah, and it actually doesn't even have to necessarily be the day you got in. It's just the price you got in. So if the ratio was
right.
Yeah, like 1 to 2.75. Well, just find wherever that is on Dex Screener when you're looking at PulseX to Pulse. And we should really be talking about decimals. It's hard to say it with fractions the way I'm saying it here. But if you just find that and then use a little measuring stick and go from wherever that was up to where we're at right now, And you're gonna, you'll probably be scared because you'll see like, oh shit, like PulseX has run up so much since I've been in this. It's like 78% or something. So let's just use that as an example because that's a very real example for when many people could have gotten in this pool. So Ewok, if you just delete basically all those fields and then just put 78%, we'll say that PulseX has run up 78% against Pulse. If you just put 78 in asset 2, and get rid of that 100 above it. Yeah.
Well, it's gonna.
Oh, is it doing that?
Well, because this goes based on the type of exchange that you get into. This is based on an AMM 50/50. So they're equally weighted. So you have to do 50/50 on your weightage because that's what anytime you get into a Uniswap type thing, PulseX, you're going to enter half or an equal amount, right, of each token. Yeah. So you can do it another way. There is so when you have this option, am I sharing the right? Yeah. You have this option of the AMM or the different types. If you're in a balancer type exchange where I know, what is it, 9-inch has those, or maybe it's not 9-inch. Either way, there are exchanges where it's an 80/20 ratio. So you can change your weightage on your own. You can make a custom one too. I don't know if it will allow you more than, no, it won't. It's only two different assets. So I know there are some custom ones with Balancer where, there's 4 or 5 different tokens where you can put 20% in of each one and balance it across 5 different ones. So those are different. But yeah, for the most part, your Uniswap type thing is the 50/50, and you have to have it weighted the same way because when you enter one side, whether it doesn't matter what it is, you're going to put the same amount of the other side in as well.
Yeah, my fault. I didn't mean to tell you to delete the 2 50/50s. That's what was throwing it off. But yeah, you can see right there, though, if you just throw in the 78, like if PulseX has moved up, you may see that and think like, oh, shit, dude, it's moved up 78% against Pulse. I'm probably screwed. Well, it only is a 4% impermanent loss. And if you've been earning ink,
And that's without Asset 1 going up at all. We haven't even included an Asset 1. If Asset 1 did a 10% at the same time, you're down to 2.8. So, that 78% was with Asset 1 not moving. So that would almost be like a stable coin. Right. Yeah. So if you had PulseX against a stable coin, your impermanent loss is only 4.0717% against a stable. So, most likely if you have another asset that is going up in price that isn't a stable, it's going to cut that in half. Even like I said, if it goes up 20%, you're only at 1.9%. And a lot of times if you're getting ink for a reward, you can buy that 1% back pretty easily if you do it on a regular basis. Obviously, don't wait till it goes up 78% and then say, crap, I can't get that stuff back. At the time, if you do it along the way, you should be able to recoup it pretty nicely.
But even if it did, just to like ease people's minds, like that 78% again sounds really extreme. All right, I'm blocking this motherfucker. Every time you you see that amount and you see how far it goes up, it's like, again, that sounds like a significant percentage, and you're like, shit, I'm probably wrecked here. I mean, even if you didn't DCA the ink back into PulseX, you're still fine. Like you're still holding the ink. I mean, like you don't have to dump it. I mean, some people do, some people don't. Ink has still done well and gone up and stuff like that. But don't be afraid, I guess is what I'm saying. Like if you haven't DCA'd into PulseX all along the way, but it is a good idea that if you have lost some of it, you can DCA into it as you go and buy the asset that you've lost more of. And then the other thing to remember too, even though like I think there's growing suspicion that we may see these things at parity, and that might be what the plan is. If PulseX, we could see, what I guess I'm saying is the pendulum could start to swing back the other way. That's why these LPs are for kind of long-term thinking, because
Sure.
you could see the ratio come back. Like right now, it's gone down as low as like 1.3 pulse X to pulse. And now we've seen it come back. So
Sure.
now you're getting some pulse back.
Well,
So
and that's why it's called impermanent loss. It's not permanent until you remove your liquidity. So it could completely go back the other way. Like you said, you've got Pulse X, it's made the run. But if you round trip this back toward the end of the next cycle, it could play out to where Pulse, because it is the network token, it could make a gain back on all of the gains that Pulse X had on it earlier. So over the long haul, it could even its way out to where you have zero impermanent loss over time. It's just, that's why it's called impermanent. When you remove your liquidity, that's your permanent loss. That's when you essentially take the loss that you've garnered over time, and it calculates as a true loss.
yes. Yeah. So there's a lot of ways to go about it. I just think that people hear liquidity providing and then they hear impermanent loss and they start to think like, oh shit, like I'm losing everything. I mean, it's not a stable coin. Like in this particular pool, we're not talking about a stable coin. So
Right.
I think that I don't want to say there's like fear mongering, but I think there's overreactions by some people. Even though Pulse X has run really hard against Pulse, I think there's overreactions from people to say like, oh man, like you don't want to put your full stack in it. You never wear. I mean, the risk is up to you, like whatever it is you want to do. I feel pretty safe being in this pool. And again, if you are upset, like you and I have had this conversation about being like, oh shit, I have this much Pulse X if I wasn't doing this at this point. But remember, you've also earned all this Pulse and you've earned all this ink that you can go back and buy the Pulse X with if you want to.
Yep. Somebody brought up I forget where I was watching, but I saw that somebody had mentioned a pool, and I forget what exchange or wherever. You could list it on Pulse X too if you want. It's just going to be not going to be rewarding you ink for it. You're going to earn the percentage of the coins. But someone said Maximus and Hex as a pair is very similar and very stable. Like they're always tied damn close together for what they are, and you can make a lot of fees and be a part of that liquidity providing as well for very, very, very little impermanent loss. Obviously, your most risk-free is going to be in a stable pool where everything hopefully stays pegged at $1 and doesn't go anywhere. I guess that is really your only risk, is if something kind of depegs. But yeah, I mean, you don't have to monitor daily. I mean,
well, I know, but if they don't, I would say if you don't
if you're
understand
not
what we're talking
experienced,
about,
yes, if you're not experienced, it's probably something you shouldn't play around with, because you could get into the wrong type of pool, and really lose out. Again, if you're in a stable coin token, you're going to end up with, especially if that token goes up in value, you're going to end up with a lot of stable coin and none of that token that you had that went up a lot. So
and will the rewards be enough to cover it? Probably not.
Well, and if it's not in Pulse X and you're getting incentive, you're probably not going to cover it with just fees. So yes. So yes, there's a little bit of truth and a little bit of, you don't have to monitor them daily, but if you don't know what you're doing, it's not recommended. I do agree with that statement.
Well, remember our conversations before I started doing it. I mean, I was timid to do it just because I was afraid of the potential and permanent loss. But then you see it in action, and you see even with Pulse X moving up as strongly as it has, and that's kind of where the education needs to come in too. Is like that you can, if everybody's so like obsessed with incentive token and like, oh, it's going to $1,000, and people just freaking out about it and stuff. Well, the other purpose of it is you can use it to dump. Dump sounds like you're just selling it for a fiat or whatever, but I mean, you can put it back into the asset that you lost. That's kind of like the point of it. And then everything's still going up anyway. Then you've got like this, kind of money printer where you're not sacrificing, but you're, putting in your LP, losing Pulse X, gaining Pulse, getting incentive to buy the Pulse X back. So you're still moving up, you know.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and hey, we've been at these crappy APYs for how long now? I mean, we've had this pool's been about a 10% APY for months. Back in March, when things were really popping off, it was up over 20%. We had incentive token was $8. So wait till those kind of things come back. Wait until we have ERC and PRC 20 pools possibly coming out. Do we get the EHEX, PHEX one back? I don't know. But if all that stuff starts to happen, we're going to be looking, feeling pretty good, I think, about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think somebody earlier asked who controls what pairs go into the farm, and that's like the chef contract. I think it's the devs, it's whoever's controlling developers have access to that, and that's really it. So essentially, Richard decides is the answer to that question without saying it.
Yeah, I think so. Good stuff. I just wanted to cover that because, you know, again, I don't want to call it misinformation. That's a co-opted, term of the left that I'm never going to use. But sometimes there's some unnecessary fear mongering, I think, around LPing in certain polls where, you know, keep in mind, like if it's against a stable, like we've talked about, that's really the one to avoid. Some of this other stuff, you can successfully do it. You just need to know what you're doing. That's all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm pretty much good on that. I don't really want to get into anything else tonight, unless there's any final thing you wanted to mention, Ewok, and then we'll kind of discuss.
Since it's not going to be a long topic, let's talk about the security. And
okay. All right.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I'll just set it up real quick. So I will say I had some different thoughts about this earlier in the week. I've changed my thoughts. I've walked it back because so people have probably seen Shill Gates on Twitter, who has kind of gotten into the PulseChain and Hex community and really enjoyed it. He's been sounding off about it, really loves it, waving the flag, excited to find a community like this. He's never found one before like this in crypto. He was just on with Axis Alive the other day and Crypto Coffee in the same day. I think he's doing I saw he was doing a Spaces with Wild SJ or something tonight on Twitter. So yeah, the guy gets it. He's into it. It's cool to see all that. And then there was like some drama that, maybe he accidentally stoked the flames of a little bit here and there, but, there's a lot of dissenting opinions. Basically, he was, according to him, given or something, two Trezors from the company, Trezor, the hardware wallet, to review and give away. Okay. Inevitably, especially from this community, which I don't think that this is a bad thing. I know that there was some angling like, see, this is what's wrong with the PulseChain community. I don't think there's anything wrong with this, but a lot of people are coming out like, I wouldn't accept a Trezor from a person I don't know on Twitter. And I 100% concur with that, but that's not just for him. It has nothing to do with Shill Gates or the man behind Shill Gates. Yeah. I wouldn't buy one off Amazon. Crypto security 101 is like, get it from the dealer, basically. And, even then, I mean, there's always things that could happen, but that's pretty much, crypto security 101. So, I didn't see everything some people said. I'm sure there were some nasty, ignorant people and stuff like that. But to get upset because people are saying it's not a good look to be reviewing a Trezor and then giving it, like, what does that mean? So you're opening it up. What are you doing with it? And then you're giving it to somebody else. Regardless of that, I'm not going to get into commentary on Shill Gates. I don't have anything negative to say about him. I thought it was really good that not that this is why he did those two interviews to like clear the air. I think he just wanted to talk about PulseChain. Axis and Coffee wanted to talk to him about it. It's a good networking opportunity. And I enjoyed hearing the guy actually speak on the air. The Twitter stuff sucks. It happens to everybody. It is what it is. But we wanted to talk about it more as a general thing, as a practice, like, even if it's being given to you, Ledger, Trezor, whatever it is, hardware wallet, don't accept it from somebody you don't know. Even I wouldn't buy it even from like an Amazon or something or a wholesaler. But yeah, what do you have to say about that, Ewok?
So the original thing was he was given one to review. He was given one to give away. So the one that was being given away was an unopened one, parent, whatever. And he did get some pushback. I think Papa B was one of the ones, he's our resident security guy who kind of laid into him a little bit. And, obviously the guy got his feelings hurt. He meant well. I think he was just trying to help somebody out. But obviously from where not realizing that no one knows you, first of all. I mean, I think that's number one. No one knows who you are, what your intentions are. They could have been purist and honestly just trying to help somebody out, but nobody knows that. And it honestly, it doesn't matter. You have to be extremely careful. You only get these things from the dealer, nowhere else. Don't buy on eBay, don't buy on Amazon, don't buy any reseller. Honestly, I wouldn't even take one from somebody that you're friends with, because you never know. You honestly have to treat these things like they already have $10 million on them before you even set them up. And that's the posture that you need to take. You have to realize that, in a couple of years' time, this thing could grow to value. And then guess what? Somebody had compromised you before you even started. And they're just waiting. They don't mind playing that waiting game down the road. So just, again, be very, very cautious, very, very careful. If anybody tries to give you one, thank them, but no thank you kind of thing, and move on. Again, if you need one, they're not that expensive. Get it direct from the factory. You and I both recommend Trezor over Ledger. There's been some Ledger issues recently where there are possibly backdoors, things like that. Who knows? They could be in Trezor too. We don't know. But there have been people very vocal about Ledgers and some of the backdoors that could be left open. It's just extremely concerning. So, again, the guy meant well, and unfortunately, like you said, after listening to him this week, I think he realized that he took it personally. He meant well, but he understood where people were coming from as a protection. Hey, we're looking out for our own here. Don't take it personal. No offense to him, and I think he understood that. It did get blown out of proportion. At first he started blocking people, and then he said, listen, I slept on it. I unblocked everybody that I blocked. I shouldn't have done it. I understand what's going on. You guys were just concerned for the safety, the security posture, all that good stuff. And it was handled very well after a day or so. I'm actually impressed with, the people that kind of, kissed and made up afterwards that were possibly involved. They weren't calling him a scammer at all. So it worked out well.
I am surprised that he got his feelings so hurt about it, because I don't know. To me, it was pretty clear. Like, and I'm not saying anything about his intentions, just on principle, like you said, that's just something that no one should do. I'm not saying about offering one. If you want to offer one, whatever, but I would never accept one. And what I think is really unfortunate was, even if maybe it was a moment of weakness, but like Shill Gates or anybody else taking the opportunity to be like, see, this is this PulseChain community, man. We get somebody new in and we chase them right out. It's like, this is a security thing. This doesn't have anything to do with, like, welcome to the ecosystem. That's fine.
Right.
But, and honestly, that's a failure of every other crypto ecosystem if you wouldn't call that out. I mean, what are you doing? It's just not, again, I don't mean calling out Shill Gates for offering it. That's fine. But just more so cautioning or protecting other people. It's just a general practice. It's just something you don't do. I see like condom references and stuff in here. Exactly the same thing. Like, it's just as a practice, like, well, she's clean. There's never been any, there's nothing wrong with her. She told me she's a virgin, whatever. I mean, yeah, well,
and if you are going to give away and you do want to give something away, try and work out a deal with the company to where maybe you could pay for it and they will ship it from their facility. A lot of times they will work something out where you can make that happen instead of, sending it to you and then you sending it to them. So,
yeah.
Are you laughing at this?
Yeah, I knew somebody would like that. But it's a principle thing. That's all it is. And for Shill Gates to take it personally is unfortunate. I don't think there's any reason to do that. And that's ultimately a choice for people. I mean, if you want to, get like that about it, that's on you to get. But again, he walked it back. And again, Twitter sucks for those kind of exchanges.
Yeah, sure.
That's why I don't really use it in that way. And it was good to hear him be interviewed, then after that. So
yeah, it was good to see everything was smoothed over and all taken care of. So
yeah.
But the reason we brought it up was just to remind people of the posturing, of the security portion of it, and to just be extremely careful. We are getting into that part of the cycle where prices are going to go up, things are going to become valuable quickly. So just use common sense. Don't click on stupid links. Don't open dumb things. Don't try to cash in airdrop tokens that you have no idea what they are. There's a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways that scammers can get, they can try to have you test a new game and you download that software. There are so many ways. Maybe we'll spend some time next stream talking about them, but it never hurts to remind people of their security and how careful that you really have to be, because as you get better at this, you're going to get more comfortable and things are just going to start clicking, click, 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 like what you're doing.
Right.
Until one click is a whoops, and that can be it, man. That can be it.
Oh yeah.
So you have to be extremely careful.
And I've never done it, but I mean, like that, I go quickly when I do things sometimes, and that's why I like favorite what I know are the correct sites. I make sure that I have the little favorite blue star lit up in my Chrome bar at the top when I go to certain stuff. I go individually to PulseChain.com to get the bridge every single time and download it. I mean, yeah, you got to be very, very careful. So, all right. Great stuff indeed. Billy Slime, I wish we were doing a 2-hour stream. We're not going to tough it out quite that long. And we're going to have to figure out a plan for next week for Christmas, because it is a Wednesday. So we don't really have one yet. We'll see what we can think of. But I think we're both probably going to be a little preoccupied on that day anyway. So we will see. But just shout out all you guys. I mean, there's so many cool people in the chat tonight. Billy Slime, Eric Angelo, Connection Corporation, Joffis, welcome in. Conspiracy Crypto. Just so many people that had great stuff to say tonight that I don't recognize from other times. So Viper Styles, Firefighting with Brad, shout out. So many good people here. So we appreciate all you guys. I don't know if we'll be back. We'll have to figure out what we do next week. We'll have that discussion off the air. I know either way we'll have some of you guys showing up for it and maybe hang out around Christmas. But I know I got some family coming in I want to spend some time with, and I know you have things that you're going to be doing as well. So we'll figure that out. But any final thoughts from you tonight?
No, just be careful. Travel safely. All that good stuff. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you. And we'll see you in the next show.
May the Lord be with you. Silent night, holy night, and all that stuff. So yeah, Merry Christmas to all you guys. It feels good to be here right now. We got a big year coming up. 2025 is right around the corner. So a lot of good football coming up here this weekend. So I know we're particularly interested in that. Maybe some of you guys are as well. So going to be a good holiday season here for sure. So for Crypto Ewok, this has been Broke Boy Crypto. We'll see you guys sometime next week right here on the Creed of Crypto. See ya.